Hi, I'm Gareth Height. Welcome back to Honors English 9 here at Perkiomen Valley High School. Just going to give you a sort of a sense for what we did this past week. I've got a whole bunch of texts to reference and also talk about essentially where the kids are and in the class. So last Wednesday, which was the last day that we left off, we had just finished up with asking some questions, some what-if questions about what if we did school different. So those are some texts that they did some close readings for, and that was to sort of get them in the sense that things were going to be a little bit different in this class. That what I'm going for really is deeper learning. I'm looking for student inquiry. I'm looking for self-determined learning. I'm also looking for increasing student voice in my class. So it's not about me. It's not about what I know. It's more about the texts, the things the students bring to the text as readers, recognizing themselves as readers, recognizing themselves not only as writers, but as people who are capable of possessing what you might call a writerly mind or a readerly mind. Like, what are the moves? What are the cognitive tricks and tricks of the trade that writers and readers do to become really good at what they're doing? So where we are now, so last Thursday, one of the things that we're still setting things up in class, setting up rituals and setting up routines. And so I started them with something called Seesaw, which is an online digital portfolio. It's really popular at the elementary level, but through some teachers that I've been in touch with on Twitter, through the group Teachers Going Gradeless, and you can find them at the Twitter address down below. I got in touch with some people who have used Seesaw, and I'm going to give it a shot with my kids this year. So we set up Seesaw. We played around a little bit with an intro activity for them. That was Thursday. Friday, they started their first writing piece. I like to get to know my students as readers and as writers through metaphor, because if we're going to be talking about who am I as a reader and who am I as a writer, and really I need to know that from my students, I'm talking about abstractions, like people, who am I as a writer? Who am I as a reader? That's a position that students may not have been put into before. So they have to come up with some kind of a metaphor for how they see themselves. So the assignment was really, and the assignment is below as well. If anyone wants to choose to use it or modify it, please go right ahead. It's all about remixing. It's all about reusing. And if you do choose to use it, let me see what you've done, please. So the assignment is they have to write a piece between 200 to 300 words on who am I as a reader, and another piece, 200 to 300 words, who am I as a writer. But the kicker is that they have to orbit around a central metaphor. I don't care what the form is. So if a student wants to write a poem about that, well, if they're getting close to 200 words, but then it starts to be contrived, that's okay. They can, not meet the lower limit. But lots of students choose to write just straight out argumentative paragraphs about how they see themselves, not necessarily argumentative, but narrative in terms of, or explanatory paragraphs, but they all center around this central metaphor. And then the idea is to extend and deepen the metaphor so that they can really get into how it really applies to them as a writer and how it really applies to them as a reader. Some students choose to write letters back and forth with themselves. Some will write dialogues, television commercials. So it's really wide open, which gives me a chance to understand them in terms of what they're willing to risk and also how they see themselves, which is obviously, like I said, really important. So that was on Friday. That assignment was due today. And today what they did in class was something called process writing. Bard College has a place called the Institute for Writing and Thinking. If you have never been there, links are down below. And if you're an English teacher or if you're just a parent and you're interested in what is this place, please go, please check it out. There is no better professional development that I've ever done in 24 years of teaching than going to the Institute for Writing and Thinking. At least as an English teacher, I've met science teachers, I've met social studies teachers. The work that we do there is all based on learning through writing and writing to learn and writing to think. So it's a great place. So that's what we did today. We did process writing about how they wrote those pieces. So process writing gives the students a chance to think about, well, what was I doing? What was I thinking when I was writing this? And what was the environment like that I was writing in? What time of the day was it? Because all those things are important to me. and getting to know them and how they work best as writers and readers as well. And then on Monday and Tuesday of this past week, I started them in on their independent reading. So Monday was an independent reading day, as was Tuesday, which gave me a chance to conference with a number of students and sort of get to understand them as readers and what some of their habits are. So I'm doing conferences with students constantly during independent reading days. But I did start out on Monday and Tuesday with a poem because those are our cafe days. Thank you, Amy Burvall. Thank you, Dan Ryder. In the book Intention, it's all about critical creativity and rigorous whimsy. Links to the book are down below. They talk a lot about how I think Amy or Dan sets up some of their days. There are some days that are cafe days, some that are studio days, and some that are stage days. So I've done the same thing in my class. Cafe days are for reading. Mondays and Tuesdays are cafe days. We always start off cafe days with a poem. Started off Monday, which was 9/11, with a poem by Galway, Kinnell called When the Towers Fell. I didn't read the whole thing. I read part of it, and I asked them to pull out an image and something that stuck with them, and then sort of like explain why in 3-minute free writing. And then on Tuesday, I was thinking about what I had done over the weekend, and I took my family, my wife and I took our kids apple picking, and so I pulled Robert Frost's poem After Apple Picking. Read that, again, digging into the imagery. We defined imagery this time and asked them to really think about how the part that they chose affected them at the sensory level. So that's where we are for this week. Lots of reading, lots of writing going on. It's all informal stuff right now, but it's all going to build up. They will have some essays, some more creative writing coming up over the next couple of weeks. And blogging is going to be something they're going to start as well. So, it's a community of writers, really. And so I use a lot of the work of Peter Elbow. This is a book that he wrote with Pat Velanoff called A Community of Writers. It's actually a textbook, but there's so much good in here in terms of like turning your classroom into a community. Can't recommend that enough. If you're not familiar with Peter Elbow, you should be. Writing with Power, Writing Without Teachers. If I can get them to do this, they don't necessarily need me. I'm speaking like figuratively. I hope they always need me because if not, I'm out of a job. But these are two great books about taking charge of your own writing and writing better. And as far as poetry goes, I'm using some work, one called Poem Central, right here by Shirley McPhillips, and also here, A Surge of Language by Baron Wormser and David Capello. That book's right here. I'll put links to those down below as well. That's 8 minutes. I'm done. Hopefully, I'll see you next week.